Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Coffee with Carl. I am your host, Carl Zellner, one of the attorneys with Anderson Business Advisors. And today I want to talk a little bit about custom drafting an entity. Whenever we have a client who requests this, there's always much discussion. So I figure if I could help take some people through the initial thought process, it may let you give you some insight on when it may be appropriate or may not be appropriate if you're looking for some custom drafting for your entity. So, as always, though, as part of the free YouTube world here, we want to make sure you're going to please like and subscribe to Coffee with Carl, as well as all the Anderson YouTube channels. So, if you can do that for me, it'd be appreciated. And then we will hop into our content here. The custom drafting process. This is, let's put it this way: for most people, this is sort of a area that's a little bit wrought with peril because ultimately a lot of folks who are requesting these specific provisions, it may not actually be appropriate for the type of, I don't know, investing you're doing. It's sort of the equivalent of if you're a physician or a doctor, somebody going on to whatever medical website or Google and trying to Google what's wrong with them. They always think they're dying, and it's always going to be some sort of cancer or something. So it can get a little precarious as far as when is appropriate, when it's not, which is quite frankly a great reason why you should rely on experienced professionals who can help lead you in the right direction. For us, when we have somebody who requests a change to our operating agreement, bylaws, anything along those lines, first thing we're going to do as part of our process is we're going to want to have a consultation with you to make sure you understand what's going to happen if you change a provision. Okay. I've had it done before where somebody has sent me pages of edits they want to have happen. And then when we discussed them, there was 0 sections they actually wanted to change. They just sort of went through and tried to find alternatives for everything that weren't appropriate. So, first thing is, like I said, we want to have a consultation. So, we want to make sure that the changes you're requesting are appropriate for what you're doing. Certainly, we can do that. All of our agreements are custom drafted. The idea is, though, that we want to make sure you're getting what best fits for what you're doing. So, first step, consultation. So, what does that tell you after the first step? It means you're probably not on a normal timeline either. So, you're outside of our normal process. You're also going to be working with a specific attorney to do that. So, it's going to take a little bit longer. So, keep that in mind as well. It's our goal, or it's my expectation, I should also say, and I share this with my other attorneys, that we want to also then provide you a timeline to complete this as well. So at least you have a expectation. But sort of as an initial expectation, if we're going to be looking at your operating agreement and changing anything, it's going to take some time because it's not usually quite as easy as let's change this sentence. When I change a sentence in one article, a lot of times throughout the operating agreement, there's going to be different things that refer to that article. So you sort of have to change the entire chain that reflects to that section or that article. So, like I said, first expectation is it's probably going to take a little bit longer, but you should get an expectation of how much longer. Uh, the next part is once the custom pieces, if we've agreed that there needs to be some changes or that it's best suited for you to have some changes, we will then send you a copy afterwards to make sure that you're basically getting what you want, what you thought or what you wanted there. And if you have additional questions, you can reach out and we can discuss and either sort of delete or rewrite if you need to. But once again, that next step in the process too, like I said, is going to add some additional time there if there's more edits or more issues to consider. So just be prepared for that as well. After that, so if everything's good, you say, sort of give us the thumbs up and you like what you got. What we normally do from then is we will move that onto our processing area. So they'll make sure everything's basically formatted and put in a nice, pretty way, so you can get your electronic version or your printed version of your entity, and then you're, for lack of a better term, off to the races. So I guess an interesting part that some may say, well, what is an appropriate time to have some custom drafting? Most common that I've dealt with is going to be people whose lenders are requesting specific provisions, or maybe you're setting up an entity that's owned by an IRA, things like that, or maybe a joint venture LLC or a joint venture deal. You may need some customization on. Overall, though, it's not super duper common, but those are some of the more common situations. Also, sort of a beautiful thing about business entities and setup and structure is it's flexible. So if say you're in a position where you need something immediately to close in, or it's, sort of you need that thing immediately, you can always set the entity up and sort of take care of those other provisions that need to be added later on, or in working with a lender or whatnot. You can do those by resolution as well. So it's one of the great things about entity structure, business entities, is their flexibility and ability to be modified. So as I mentioned, it's not the end of the world if something needs to change. It's just one of those things to consider. Sometimes time is more important than original function, and sometimes we got the time to do the edits beforehand, and then we'll do them. So like I said, really the idea is let's set a reasonable expectation. The expectation is if there is a bunch of customized work needed, it not only involves usually the section you're looking at, but other sections that correlate to it. So just make sure, like I said, just keep that in mind when that happens. But ultimately, like I said, my expectation or my goal is to make sure that the attorney you're working with at Anderson will also provide you hey, here's a reasonable timeline for this. So you're both on the same page. So, with that, that is our subject for the day. So, thanks again for joining me with Coffee with Carl. Take advantage of all of our free content out there. And remember to please like and subscribe, especially to Coffee with Carl channel, and as well as all of our Anderson associated channels as well. So, it lets us know, hey, we appreciate the free content and please keep doing it. So, until next time, thanks everybody. And we will catch you on the next episode of Coffee with Carl.